Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. The sweltering heat of the summer of 1947 was leaving the sea, people of a small town in Honduras drenched in sweat, even in the early hours of the morning. As the first light of day began to break, the town slowly started to awaken, with its people stepping out of their homes, feeling the golden gleam of the sun gently spreading across the land. But something was different this morning. At first it was hard to notice, but there was movement in the sky. Something was up there, but it was difficult to make out what it was. The townsfolk, expecting the arrival of an ordinary rain cloud, assumed that everything would be like any other day. Suddenly, a sound was heard, a loud rustling noise, followed by what seemed like an explosion. Then, the townspeople couldn't believe their eyes. From the clear blue sky, a group of fish was falling. The backs of the fish glimmered like silver in the light, and when they hit the stones on the ground, they made small popping sounds. The townsfolk initially watched this strange sight in disbelief, then began to observe it more closely. The fish were part of a large group, and the wind made each one descend at a slightly different angle. When one looked at the sky, it seemed as though the fish were falling in a pattern, as though they had been born in the sky. At first, people thought this was just a coincidence. Maybe a storm or a strong wind had swept the fish from the sea and thrown them so high into the air. This thought brought a brief sense of relief, but the event harbored a greater mystery. The surrounding silence was broken by the sound of a fish hitting the ground, splattering a small liquid around it. This was when the townspeople realized that this event was much more than they had originally thought. Slowly, people from different parts of the town began to gather around the strange rain. Without any rain or storm, how could these fish fall from such a height in such perfect alignment? Children excitedly picked up the fish with their hands, tilting their heads to gaze at the sky. Many people carefully placed the fish on the stones and the earth, while others began to believe that there was some mysterious force of nature behind it. As the people of the town began to ponder this strange occurrence, various theories and thoughts began to circulate. Many believed that it was simply a reminder of nature's power, while others sensed there was a deeper meaning. However, no one knew exactly what was happening. The people of the town did not panic. Instead, they quietly became immersed in the mystery, hoping to uncover more about the event. A few people continued to observe the sky intently, almost as if they were showing respect to the falling fish. The townsfolk watched the spectacle in turn, slowly coming to the conclusion that the fish falling from the sky was either a great natural phenomenon or a sign of some sort of miracle. The idea that there was something supernatural behind the event quickly took hold of the town. Some claimed it was a divine message, while others considered it a random natural occurrence. However, as they watched the mysterious rain, everyone in the town couldn't help but ask the same question: how could this be possible? The shock of the event still weighed heavily on the townspeople. Initially, there had been a brief period of disbelief, followed by a growing wave of curiosity that seemed to intoxicate the town. But after a few hours, the sky cleared once again, and the sun's rays began to illuminate every corner of the town. Yet the peaceful scene was marred by the lingering effect of the strange event, because the rain, along with the fish falling, continued. With every passing moment, another fish fell, and the small pops of their impact on the ground only seemed to deepen the sense of enchantment rather than concern. Though the sky was clear, the town felt as though it had been struck by some kind of calamity. People slowly continued to watch as the fish rained down, each harboring different emotions. Within, some elderly women prayed, believing the fish's fall was a sign from God. Others tried to assign meaning to the fish, thinking it might be a sign of nature's imbalance or a disturbance. In the midst of the town's somber silence, the whispers among the people grew louder. Many believed that this natural phenomenon was truly something extraordinary. The townspeople, deep in thought, came to the conclusion that the event was a message from nature, with each fish representing something significant. Some even began to suspect that there was some other power at play in or around the town. Some believed that this was a sign that would be a part of everyone's destiny in the town. The concept of nature's will began to circulate. All these thoughts were the harbingers of a wave of tension that was spreading through the town. On the other hand, there were those among the townsfolk who were more cautious and practical. They argued that there had to be a scientific explanation for the event. People wanted scientists to investigate this strange rain and find a solution. However, no one could have predicted how complex and difficult the issue was to solve. But one thing was clear. The frequency of the rain was so noticeable that it deepened the townsfolk's thoughts. As the hours passed and the fish continued to fall, the people of the town grew closer to one another. Many had come to the conclusion that this was such an unusual event that it couldn't be explained by just one reason. Slowly, the crowd that gathered in the town square began to watch each fish fall carefully. Each fall deepened the mystery. Although the sky was lit up by the shimmering sunlight, the town felt as though it were engulfed in a fog. Some people continued to collect the fish, while others frequently looked up at the sky, trying to understand where the fish were falling from. The debate over whether the event had a supernatural aspect had grown. Some suggested that the fish were harbingers of some sort of evil or disaster. Others viewed the fish as a sign of nature's inner imbalance, something represented in the subconscious. However, despite all these thoughts, the fish continued to rain down. Slowly, the townspeople began to believe that this event was some kind of curse, as it seemed that the order of things had been disrupted. No matter how many fish fell, the people of the town remained united, trying to solve the mystery without panic. As the anxiety within the townsfolk grew, scientists eager to confront the mystery of nature began to arrive in the town. However, although the townspeople wanted to hear scientific solutions, no one could accept any explanation with certainty. A few scientists who examined the surroundings noted that it was impossible for the fish to come from such a great distance, but still, no explanation had been found. This uncertainty only heightened the underlying fears within the townspeople. As the sun began to set, the townsfolk experienced a strange sense of calm, while still seeking to uncover the truth behind this bizarre event. A few days after the event, the townspeople still hadn't fully grasped what had happened. Scientific explanations seemed to offer a sense of salvation. Now, the town had attracted the attention of the entire world. As news outlets covered the strange event in Honduras, scientists began to take action to uncover the cause. Experts from various fields came to the town to investigate the phenomenon and uncover the truth behind it. First, meteorologists and atmospheric scientists thought the event might have been caused by some sort of storm or air current. With this in mind, the weather conditions around the town were thoroughly examined. However, no clear signs of a storm were found in the town or surrounding areas. The sky was clear, and there were no clouds. The wind speed was observed to be at normal levels, and the townspeople quickly accepted that no weather event had occurred to cause the fish to fall from the sky. Next, biologists and marine scientists were brought in to address how the fish could have been raised to such a height to reach the town. However, the surface of the nearby sea showed no unusual changes. The seawater levels were normal, and the fish species were described as ordinary. This ruled out the possibility that the fish had been taken from the sea or an ocean and transported to the town. With this, the possibility of fish being swept up by a storm was dismissed, pushing the scientists to explore new avenues. A group of experts proposed that the event might be connected to the ecosystem around the town. When examining the nearby ponds and waterways, it was found that the waters were calm and everything was flowing normally. This, however, didn't explain how the fish could have suddenly leapt so high from the water and been blown through the air. Biologists observed that transitions between fresh and salt water were occurring at normal rates. In other words, there were no signs of a water current or fluid movement that could have forced the fish into the sky. The winds coming from the sea were also a factor that needed to be addressed. A group of meteorologists speculated that this event might not have been limited to just the town, and that the weather conditions in the surrounding area could have affected a larger region. The townsfolk, at the beginning of this investigation, also discussed the possibility that the winds might play a critical role in how the fish were able to rise into the sky. However, measurements taken in the town showed that the wind speed remained normal. It was not possible for the wind to sweep the fish down from the sky. As the scientists conducted their investigations, some of the townsfolk eagerly awaited the results while others became lost in deeper thoughts. The strange way in which the fish rose to the sky was seen by some as a divine sign. As scientific explanations continued to fall short, more people began to view the event as a kind of sacred message or supernatural phenomenon. The majority of the townspeople began to embrace the idea that this unexplained phenomenon was an expression of nature's anger. However, a group of scientists continued to argue that there was no supernatural aspect to the event, and that some natural occurrence might have triggered a series of events under specific conditions. According to these explanations, perhaps there was an unusual gas or humidity level in the atmosphere around the town. However, even this could not fully explain why the fish had risen to the sky. As the days passed, the townspeople's trust in scientific explanations began to wane. Many were left bewildered by the inability of scientists to find a solution. There was no unusual weather movement in the sky, nor was there any unexplained change in the local water sources. Scientific tools and observations proved inadequate. But one thing remained certain: the fish continued to fall. The tension between the townspeople and scientists eventually reached a point where the scientific explanations had ultimately fallen short. Most of the townsfolk began to sense that this event held a deep mystery. Some believed it was a sign related to the town's future, while others thought it signaled a catastrophe approaching, the result of nature's imbalance. Yet the most striking thing was that the fish kept falling. Nature was trying to tell them something, but what? As the days passed, the townspeople gradually began to get used to the sight of fish falling from the sky. What had initially been a bizarre and shocking event soon became a part of daily life. As fish continued to fall in the town square, the effect of this strange phenomenon on the townsfolk's mindset began to shift. The initial shock and panic had begun to leave deep marks on their spirits. Many people started to view the fish's descent as an extraordinary miracle. Some townsfolk attached various meanings to the fish that fell from the sky. Many elderly women believed the fish brought healing. They thought each fish carried a kind of restorative power, and that the darkness over the town was slowly lifting. Beliefs formed that those who touched or gathered the fish would see their health improve. Others believed that the fish falling from the sky was a gift from nature itself, and that everyone should respect this gift. Other townsfolk, however, began to interpret the fish's fall as more of a divine sign. The orderly way the fish fell seemed to carry a kind of sacred message. Those who followed the Christian faith believed it was a message from God. Some thought it was a sign of forgiveness for the town, while others saw it as a hopeful light, indicating that the town would be reborn through faith. God is sending us a message. The number of people saying this grew each day. People would gather the fish, embracing them as though they were something as valuable as gold, holding them in their hands while praying. Over time, each moment the fish fell became a sort of celebration. Even though the townspeople did not know the source of this strange event, they had elevated the meaning of it through the emotional bond they shared with it. The fish falling from the sky was no longer seen as a disaster, but as a sign of a turning point for the town. The event had transformed into a symbol of solidarity and hope. The falling fish created a sense of inner peace for every member of the town. At the same time, a deep sense of unity emerged among the townspeople. No one knew for certain what the falling fish truly meant, but this uncertainty brought them closer together. Everyone tried to help one another, gathering the fish, sharing stories about them, and creating a sense of solidarity in every corner of the town. Children gathered the fish, the elderly prayed, and the young gave each other hope. Everyone wanted to be part of this event, and each fall of a fish reinforced the sense of unity and belonging in the town. As emotions intertwined in this complex process, the townspeople began to develop a series of traditional rituals related to the falling fish. Some townsfolk held their own special ceremonies to celebrate the fish's fall. These ceremonies were simple but meaningful actions, performed with gratitude and prayer for each fish that fell from the sky. Every time the fish fell from the sky, the townspeople gathered together, prayed, and then collected the fish, trying their best to preserve them. After a while, the townspeople began to approach this strange natural event, not with fear, but with a sense of patience and curiosity. The sky continued to rain fish, and the townsfolk seemed to embark on some kind of inner journey alongside it. No matter how strange it was, The falling fish had turned from a source of fear into a ritual that brought the townspeople closer together. This event had become a part of the town's history, and every new fish fall deepened the emotional bonds among the people. In those moments, the townsfolk, while trying to solve the mystery of the event, also began to understand the importance of their collective experience, feeling the power of unity. The fish that fell from the sky in 1947 left an indelible mark on the memories of the townspeople. Even though years passed after this extraordinary event, fish rains continued to visit the town from time to time. The initial shock and fear gave way to habit and a deeper spiritual search. The town became synonymous with the falling fish. While fish rained from the sky, the townsfolk welcomed it with great calmness and determination. Each fish rain became a turning point for the town. Every falling fish was now part of a ritual taught in previous years. As the townsfolk collected the fish, they would recite prayers over each one, sometimes thanking the gods as they treated them as sacred. During every rain, special ceremonies were held in the town square or at homes, and old traditions were revived. People would share stories of what this event had meant in the past, teaching the younger generations the significance of the fish rain. The falling fish had transformed into not just a natural event, but a spiritual journey for the townsfolk. They began to view each fish that fell from the sky as a divine sign or a harbinger of a future change. The townspeople increasingly believed that there was a supernatural force or a sacred message behind this strange event. Some believed it was part of the town's spiritual purification process, while others thought it was a gift from nature in response to the townspeople's unity. The fish had become not just a product of nature, but a part of the town's collective memory. However, the scientific world still had not solved the mystery. Scientists developed various theories to understand how fish could fall from the sky. Some suggested that the fish might have been carried by winds from the sea or lakes over long distances. Others debated the possibility of unusual movements in the sea currents around the town that could have transported the fish. Yet, no theory fully explained the true nature of the event. Scientific research failed to reach a definitive conclusion, and with every fish rain, the townspeople's beliefs grew stronger. The town, along with this mysterious event, became not only the center of a natural phenomenon, but also a symbol. The fish rains continued to influence the culture, beliefs, and daily life of the town. Each fish fall served as a reminder of nature's power, the fear of the unknown, and the world shaped by people's beliefs. The townsfolk, despite the ongoing strange event, learned to live with it over the years. Everyone found their place in this natural miracle. Some of the elderly accepted the falling fish as a kind of celebration, while the younger generation watched the event with hope and curiosity for the future. As people gathered in the town square to witness the fish fall, they realized that this strange event had become a part of the town's identity. Instead of wondering about the cause of the event with each rain, the townsfolk began to accept it like a kind of meditation. They focused on these fish to achieve inner peace. Over time, the fish rains had become a kind of spiritual journey for the town. The townsfolk no longer saw each fish that fell from the sky merely as a natural event, but searched for meaning within it. For some, it was a reminder of the past. For others, it was a source of hope for the future. The town had gained a more unified identity through this event. With every fish rain, the people felt closer to each other, forming a societal bond. However, the emotional atmosphere within the town was in conflict with the scientific perspectives coming from the outside. While scientists from the outside world continued their search for an explanation for the falling fish, the townspeople had already solved the meaning of the event within their own beliefs and rituals. Over time, scientific explanations became less important to the townsfolk. What mattered most was the extraordinary bond with the town's history, culture, and unity. As the years went by, the fish rains became intertwined with the town's historical and cultural identity. The townsfolk had accepted this event and embraced it as part of their lives. Although the falling of the fish had not been scientifically solved, its meaning for the town was much deeper. It was a symbol, a sign, perhaps even a language through which nature was silently trying to communicate something. Over time, The fish rain in the small town of Honduras transformed from merely a strange phenomenon of nature into a deep philosophical question that led people to reflect on their own existence. Even though years had passed since the event, with each fish rain, the townsfolk lived with a deeper understanding of the fleeting nature of life, the mysterious powers of nature, and the relationship between these powers and humanity. As the fish fell from the sky, people believed they were not just a natural event, but a reminder from nature. Each fish was unconsciously trying to teach them something. The townsfolk spent years developing various rituals and prayers to comprehend the mysteries of nature. As they looked at the fish falling from the sky, a deep awareness of the shortness and transience of life began to form. Every fish was like a symbol of life, not just a being that fell from the sky and disappeared, but a part of a cycle, a reflection of both a beginning and an end. As they collected the fish, they considered them sacred, both physically valuable and symbolically important. Each fish seemed to teach them something. Nature was testing them and also showing them the way to live in peace. While the townspeople looked more closely at nature's mysterious forces, they had transformed their understanding of this event from just a supernatural phenomenon into a pursuit. Although science still couldn't explain how the fish fell from the sky, for the townsfolk, it became more of a process of acceptance and living peacefully, rather than a conscious discovery. The townsfolk chose to live in peace with these mysteries, rather than trying to solve them. Over time, the fish rains became an inseparable part of the town's culture, and the townsfolk continued to live with the peace the phenomenon brought them. The falling fish had become much more than just a natural event for the town. Each fish rain was a reminder of the deep bond between humans and nature. People felt that nature was consciously trying to tell them something in this mysterious event. The townsfolk had moved beyond trying to understand all of nature's secrets, and had learned to live in balance with it. This event was just the beginning of the relationship between nature and humanity. People began to notice the connections between their inner existence and nature, and the town became the center of a spiritual awakening. Today, those who live in the town accept the falling of the fish as a reminder. This event gives meaning to their daily lives, helping them explore the power of nature and what it truly means to be a part of nature. The townsfolk consider the falling fish a gift from nature, a teacher. With each rain, they hope to take one more step toward understanding the mysteries of nature. At a point where scientific explanations were insufficient, the town had discovered its own mystical meanings. Each fish was a symbol of an era, an event, and a pursuit. As people looked at the powers of nature, they asked deep questions about the meaning of life. What was nature trying to tell them by testing them? This extraordinary event, highlighting the transience and complexity of life, increased humanity's humility and respect in the face of nature. And with every fish rain, the story continued to deepen. The townsfolk, with the profound messages they received from the fish, strengthened their bond with nature each passing year. The continued falling of the fish symbolized the peaceful coexistence of the townsfolk with nature. The fish were no longer just a natural event. They had become a symbol of humanity's respect for, patience with, and understanding of nature.